He wouldn't abandon me for such a thing, but it did happen. Jessica is my name. I suppose this is my confession. I am 30 years old. A few weeks have passed since it all happened, and I still find it hard to believe. I only wanted him to get a grip. I didn't mean to push him that hard. Simply put, he didn't have to behave that way. We've experienced worse after all. However, I still don't understand why he broke down when I told him to man up in front of our friends. As usual, we were all laughing and drinking at our friend's place. Chad, my spouse, was just sitting there quietly. Even if he doesn't talk much, he didn't mention the game. Instead of contributing to the conversation or making a snarky remark, he was sitting there looking into his beer as if he were carrying a heavy load. I suppose I was irritated by it. Things are difficult, of course, but I'm over here taking care of everything, including sending the kids to school, paying the bills, and attempting to keep the house from collapsing. What's his deal, then? Why was he behaving so clumsily? I tried to be subtle at first. Come on, Chad, talk to me. I would cast him a few glances, but he remained still. I felt like I was the only one attempting to add some joy to the evening. I simply said it when it reached that point. Man up, Chad, I yelled out, without even remembering what I said before. I believe I was kidding, but really, who am I kidding? No, I wasn't. I shouted something inappropriate out of frustration. Chad just froze while everyone else laughed. He gave me the look of someone who had just been smacked in public, at least not to him. It wasn't hilarious, before turning his head away. The entire room seemed to become silent. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears, but people were still talking. I had before witnessed Chad become agitated, but never to this extent. He remained silent and did not defend himself. He simply got up and left. It was unbelievable to me. What was the intended meaning of that? Could he not take a joke? I had previously apologized several times for my foolish remarks. Perhaps I simply wanted him to be a bit more like the rugged, humorous, and strong guys I see on TV. However, that was simply strange. He was behaving as though I had committed a terrible deed. I remained there, feeling a strange tension, unsure of what had transpired. Sincerely, I didn't believe it was that significant. He didn't stress out when I spent excessive amounts of money on miscellaneous items for the house. For example, he simply dealt with it. Why was so different when we normally worked things out? That's where everything went wrong, though, I suppose. I was pushing him so much without even realizing it. And I had been doing it unconsciously for years. The money, I believe, was the first factor. He's always been there to help fix it. Even if I've always been a little bad at it, he would pay what I spent. Yes, but he's been quieter about it lately, and I didn't understand why. What was stopping him from letting it go? I'm aware that urging him to man up in front of our friends wasn't the only thing I did that evening. The ongoing conflict over money, the way he would become silent when we discussed the future, or the times I made a mistake again and he had to fix it, were all the other things that accumulated. When he left like that, I realized something was very wrong. Even though I honestly thought he was being dramatic, I initially assumed he would return and offer an apology. He might even claim that he was exaggerating. However, he did not return. That evening or the following day, when he eventually called me, all he said was, "I need some space." To be honest, I had no idea how to respond to that. Room, as in what? For years, I had given him room. In my opinion, he simply needed to move on. However, I realized something was wrong when he failed to attend the following weekend's children's soccer match. Chad never missed those, never. While I'm not denying that I felt, I couldn't help but wonder what I had done wrong. How was he ever going to handle anything else, really, if he couldn't take me saying that? At first, I wasn't even sorry. I mean, I claimed to be, but I didn't really get why he was so angry. I simply believed it to be a stupid remark, and if he didn't want to get past it, then perhaps he wasn't the person I believed him to be. I'm not sure, and now I kind of regret it. To be honest, correct, he ought to have been more resilient. I mean, all I was trying to do was force him to defend himself. However, he didn't. And I'm now left wondering where he went. I may have pushed him too far. Perhaps, am I the only one at fault here, or was I mistaken? I'm not sure. Do you believe that he is exaggerating? Should I attempt to repair at all? Maybe I don't know how to solve it, but I'm beginning to think this is it. To be honest, I expected he would return. I reminded myself that this wouldn't have the potential to destroy a marriage. We would move on when he made a foolish remark in front of our pals. I kept telling myself that. But he never returned. You're probably thinking, this is my fault. But he didn't even try to reason it out. I couldn't comprehend what I said. But I shouldn't have said it. The first time I saw him since that night was 2 weeks later. Since I had no justification for not contacting him. I called him when the kids were with his sister. Despite my nervousness, I had to take action. I wasn't going to sit here and let him. His voice was flat when he did respond. He didn't sound upset, but he also didn't seem to give a damn. Hey, I said, attempting to be lighthearted. How have you been? Good, he said. The only thing I got was that. My voice was trembling a little as I continued, so we need to talk about what happened. But I made an effort to remain composed. I had no desire to. I sounded frantic. He didn't appear ready to talk. But I didn't want him to think I was some mess pleading for his return. I don't think there's anything to talk about, Jessica, he replied. I felt a chill run down my spine just listening to his voice. His words struck me like a punch. You said what you said. And it wasn't the first time you've pushed me. You've been doing this for a while. I wanted to defend myself and argue. But something in his tone made me stop. I detested the way he sounded, worn out, as if he had finished. He seemed to be giving up on us. Which I detested, but I could somewhat understand why. I had been making mistakes for months without even realizing it. Maybe I did, but I wasn't concerned enough to make the necessary repairs. I said, I didn't mean it like that. In a voice that was almost audible, but the quiet on the other end was deafening. It was just a joke, Chad. You know how I am. I was just frustrated, that's all. I didn't mean to hurt you. Then he let out a sigh. I know you didn't mean to hurt me, Jess. But that's just it. You don't realize how much you hurt me when you say things like that, when you make me feel like I'm not enough. I'm not this guy who's just going to sit around while you tear me down. I can't keep trying to fix everything when you don't even care about the mess you're making. I froze, attempting to take in his words. In a sense, he was correct. I had never truly realized how much I depended on, and I expected him to correct me whenever I made a mistake. I assumed that was simply his job. He was the spouse, the breadwinner, and the guardian, and I was just me. Anyway, I believed I could get away with it. But he was no longer allowing me to do so. I detested that he was correct. He was sick of having to clean up my mess. I repeated, I'm sorry. But it sounded vacuous. I was aware that the apology was insufficient and would not resolve the issue. I could not simply speak the words and hope that everything would return to normal. I don't know if I can do this anymore, Jess, he stated in a stern but quiet voice. I need more than this. I need someone who respects me, who sees what I'm doing and appreciates it, not someone who just expects me to keep fixing things while they keep breaking it all. The ground seemed to have fallen away from me. He was genuinely considering leaving, and he was speaking the truth. Then I became defensive. I was unable to accept it in my mind. I had to show him that I wasn't a bad person. He was portraying me as a terrible guy, but I wasn't. We had a life together after all, and we had children. All of that couldn't be lost. With a stronger tone than I intended, I shot back. You think I don't appreciate you? You think I don't see everything you do? I'm just trying to live my life, Chad. You don't get it. I have to deal with the kids, the bills, the house, everything. And I try, okay, I try. I just mess up sometimes. He took a while to respond. Although he was making an effort to remain composed, I could hear the aggravation in his quiet. He said, messing up all the time isn't an excuse, Jess, following a protracted silence. His statement struck a deeper chord than any fight we had previously had. You don't take responsibility for your mistakes. You don't even try to change, and that's the problem. He was correct. Never did I accept responsibility. It was always him, or my situation, or the children, or anything else. However, hey, maybe I'm the one who's messing everything up was a revelation to me that I had never considered before, but I dodged, as I often do. Rather than admitting it, I tried to seem casual when I said, well, I'm not perfect, Chad. But it came across as defensive. Nobody's perfect. I'm not asking you to be perfect. I'm asking you to understand I can't be perfect, and neither can you. But he refused to listen. I expected him to snap back, but he didn't. Maybe I'm not the one who's perfect, but I've tried. And I don't know how much longer I can try when you don't even seem to care. That was all he said before he let out another sigh and said the words that would stay with me forever. It was then that I thought he might be finished, After that, I was at a loss for words. As this weight settled in my chest, I simply remained silent. To be honest, I had no idea how to break the dense stillness between us. I no longer even knew if I wanted to. However, as I sat there looking at my phone, I came to the realization that this was more than just the dumb thing I said in front of our friends. This was about me, about him, about us, about everything, and perhaps, just possibly, it was me who needed to change. However, I wasn't yet prepared to acknowledge it. The darkest days came after that talk. I continued mentally reliving everything, the quiet, his tone, and his remarks, and to be honest, I was ashamed. I felt in my heart that I was to blame. I couldn't bring myself to admit that I was the one who had driven him to this point. I wasn't prepared to acknowledge that I might have made a mistake or ruined everything. Trying to pretend that nothing had changed, that everything was okay, I thought. I'm not the bad guy here, I'm just human. He's overreacting. It was as obvious as day. I no longer had the same way of looking at him. What's the worst? I had no idea how to make it better. I wasn't prepared to confront the truth. I became increasingly aware of how much I had taken him for granted the more I gave it some thought. That's how I've never seen it before. He had been keeping everything together for me. But I was unaware of how much he had always been the one to ensure that we were stable, that the children had all they needed, and that the bills were paid. And me, I constantly spent money we didn't have on pointless items, put us in debt, and pretended that he was solely responsible for fixing everything in addition to being careless. I was also self-centered, but not yet. I couldn't admit it. I was unable to. If you don't even appear to care about what you're doing, how many times can I keep attempting to make things better? It's draining, although true. I thought he would simply forgive me and move on every time I made a mistake. I never made a concerted effort to change. It never occurred to me how much it was wearing him down. I murmured, barely raising my voice above a whisper, I don't want to lose you, Chad. Yet it was true. It dawned on me for the first time how much I would lose if I did nothing. Because I couldn't stop making mistakes. I wasn't just losing my husband, I was losing everything. My life, my family, and my children. He remarked in a chilly tone, as if he were closing down. I don't know what you want from me anymore. The lady I married is not you. I'm not sure who you are anymore. And I'm not sure whether I can continue. My chest began to ache. Those were harsh statements. He was finished. I had no idea how to get him back, and he had given up trying. I sat motionless as his words replayed in my head, each one cutting right through me. I no longer know who you are. The air in the room seemed to have been drawn out. I was unable to think clearly, but my heart was pounding. Blunders were drowning me, and I had no idea how to get out of it. I opened my lips to speak, but the words simply would not come. I reached for him, but he drew away, his eyes hardened, aloof. What was going on with us? I used to be able to discuss anything with him. Every word I spoke seemed to exacerbate the situation. Now, I muttered, please don't leave me. Chad, his jaw tensed as he gently shook his head. I can't do this any longer, Jess, but I'm not going to abandon you. I can't continue to act as though nothing is wrong. I'm being broken by you. Tears started to spring up in my eyes, but I refrained from letting them fall. Not now, not here. I couldn't allow him to witness my tears. I was finally realizing the consequences of all the mistakes I had made. I was still resisting. I was at a loss on how to make amends. I apologized in a tremulous voice. I know I made a mistake, but I'm not sure how to correct it. How can I resolve this? Chad's expression was a mixture of melancholy and annoyance. It cannot be fixed in a single day. Simply saying I'm sorry won't make things better, Jess. There is so much destruction. I have given everything I have to this family, to us, and I have been there for you. But if you're not even making an effort to meet me halfway, I can't keep giving. I felt like screaming, though I knew he was correct. I wanted to implore him to see that I didn't plan to ruin things. I hadn't made an effort. I hadn't been doing my responsibilities. I continued to blame everything but myself and make excuses. Please, I'll do anything, Chad. I promise that I will change. Desperation began to seep into my voice as I pleaded. I just need a chance. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he seemed to be attempting to determine whether or not what I was saying was credible. As he glanced down at his coffee cup, his eyes showed how he was. He was simply exhausted, not as seen by the question in his eyes. I was so fed up with battling for something that no longer seemed worth it, he responded. I don't know if I can believe you anymore in a low, husky voice. His comments were like a kick to my chest. Every time I think you're going to change, you just do something else. It's like you're not even listening. I don't know what else to say. All I could do was sit there feeling like the worst version of myself. Even though I wanted to scream, in all honesty, I was afraid of the woman I had become, who I no longer even knew. I wanted to put things right. I wanted to fix everything, however. I secretly understood that a few words wouldn't solve the problem. Saying I'm sorry and expecting everything to return to normal was not going to be adequate. I tried to sound confident when I said, I know I've messed up, but I still love you. But it was only a whisper of what it should have been. With a frustrated moan, he rubbed his face. I don't think you do, Jess, not in the way that I need. Not in the way that's going to make any difference. Maybe it's time we stop pretending. Maybe it's time we face the fact that we're not the same people we were when we first got married. I was unable to look at him anymore. My world seemed to be collapsing. I was powerless to stop the loss of all I had taken for granted, including the family we had created, the love, and the stability. Whispering, I'm not perfect, Chad, I suppressed a sob. His eyes briefly softened before the barriers rose again. I know I'm not. But please don't walk away from me. I suddenly realized it was too late. I can't keep doing this, Jess. I need someone who's going to stand by me, who's going to be there for me. I've given everything. And I'm empty. I don't have anything left to give. The floor underneath me seemed to split open as he got up from the table. He stepped away. And I realized that I had pushed him too far. I'm sorry, he murmured quietly. But I can't keep doing this. I'm done. I was aware that I had lost him and I was solely responsible for it. The months that followed were a blur. I made an effort to remain composed for the children. But nothing seemed the same, even though I knew I was the one who started it all. I was nevertheless overcome with remorse once Chad moved out. I felt like I was suffocating at moments. At night, I would lie awake contemplating all the opportunities I had lost and the times I had taken for granted. Then I ran into him again one evening. Even though it was short, just a few words were spoken. It was plenty to let me know that he was finished. No amount of begging or apologizing could bring him back. He had gone on. Everything was my fault. I was now by myself dealing with the sorrow, the hurt, and the loneliness that came with my acts. I was hit hard by everything I had attempted to avoid. I will always remember that day. I can't remember how my selfishness caused me to lose everything.